Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and thanks for joining us for another episode of FPL Fix. It's chip season once again, both of us have an active chip in play this week and we're expecting to see plenty of other managers doing the same. If you're on his chip this week, it could make or break your season. Just a quick reminder, if you do find this content helpful, it really helps us out if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. My name's James and as always I'm joined by Patrick. Let's get into the action.
Hi everyone, we're kicking things off by taking a look at the most transferred players ahead of Game Week 32. And as you can see, it's all about Crystal Palace this week. Mateta, Munoz and Eze all feature in the top 5 most transferred in, with Palace assets clearly getting a boost after their win and the upcoming back-to-back double game weeks.
Jacob Murphy unsurprisingly tops the charts with his recent form putting him firmly on the radar, and with another home double he's got a real chance to extend that form. Rodgers is the other player on this list. He might be a minutes risk given the games against PSG in the Champions League, but he hasn't been benched in the Premier League when fit all season, so could be worth the gamble.
Looking at the transferred out list, and 4 of the top 5 are all injury concerns. Mbeumo is a bit of a surprise though. Brentford don't blank in 34 like a lot of teams, and they do actually finish the season with good fixtures.
So, those are the players on the move this week. Some managers are chasing form and others are just jumping off injured assets. But just because a player's popular doesn't always mean they're the best pick for your team. So let's take a closer look at some of the key players we think are worth targeting this week, whether you're using a chip or just making a single transfer.
We've picked out a few options based on fixtures, form and minutes. Let's get into it. Starting with the teams to target, we've got a top 4 ranked on screen. If you don't have a plan for Game Week 34, then it might be best to focus on Newcastle. But if you're free hitting in 34, like me, and a lot of others, then Crystal Palace, Man City and Arsenal are the teams to attack. In goal we've got Pope as a top pick. He's kept a clean sheet in his last game and has 2 home fixtures to extend that run. In defence, and Munoz is the best attacking defender by far, but Newcastle have a much stronger chance of 1 or even 2 clean sheets this week. Burn, Shah and Trippier are all worth considering.
On to midfield, and we've got Murphy as the number 1 target for midfielders in the upcoming fixtures. Fresh off the back of his 16-point return and moving into a double game week at home, he has a real chance to extend his great form. Eze has been the better of the 2 Palace midfielders in the last couple of weeks, but they should get more space in behind with the tougher fixtures, so Sarr could well step up and prove up his value. Isak and Mateta stay as the top 2 striker picks, but Marmoush does enter the fray this week. He's playing as the sole striker for City with Haaland's injury, and including the double next week, City have some really nice fixtures coming up.
So those are the key players we've got our eyes on this week. A mix of form picks and potential differentials, but how many of them have actually made it into our teams? Let's look at our teams for Game Week 32, and we'll talk through the transfers we've made, our chip strategy, and the big captaincy decisions. Why don't you start things off, James?
Thanks Patrick. Yeah, all things considered, it's actually a pretty quiet week for me. My assistant manager chip is active for the 3rd and final week, so I'm hoping Glasner can guide Palace to a strong finish. If he does, then Munoz and Sarr could both return nicely for me. I'm tripled up on Palace and also tripled up on Newcastle. Despite Murphy's big haul last week, I've always been more focused on their defence. I've got Pope and Burn covering the back, and then Isak leads the line. He'll definitely be my captain this week. Kirkes has a decent home fixture against Fulham, so he's my only single game week defender, and I'm hoping he can discover his form. Bowen stays in my 11 despite the tough fixture. Liverpool looked open against Fulham last week, so I'm hoping West Ham can expose them in a similar way. That being said, I've also got Salah, so I'm just crossing my fingers for plenty of goals in that game. Palmer is a slight concern though. He came off early in Europe and only played a half in the league, but even with reduced minutes, I'm backing him to deliver against Ipswich. Up front with Isak, I've got Marmoush and Wood. Ideally, I'd love to see either Wood or Kluivert return from injury, but if there's no good news, I might be tempted to move early on Cunha. He's flying under the radar after that suspension, and I reckon he could come back firing. So for now, I'll either be rolling the transfer or bringing in Cunha if we don't get positive injury updates. I've already got my 6 out of 6 doublers, so I'm feeling pretty confident heading into Game Week 32. How are you set up this week, Patrick?
I've decided to use my wildcard chip for Game Week 32. In goal I've gone with Raya against Brentford. Even though Brentford have been strong going forward lately, I believe Arsenal's defence is starting to look immense again. Look at how they shout out Real Madrid. In defence, I've gone with Munoz. He's got tough double fixture. Crystal Palace might concede heavily against City and Newcastle, but Munoz has proven himself to be an amazing goal threat. I've also bought in Burn. He's a double game week and both games are at home and is an attacking threat from set pieces. Last is Cuio. I brought him in after his incredible performance against Real Madrid. My midfielders are Salah, Murphy, Ismail Assar and Asensio. Salah is always a top asset and West Ham are leaking goals at the moment. Jacob Murphy is my differential. He's had some explosive returns this season and has a double game week coming up. Asensio's minutes have increased lately and he doubles in game week 33. Ismail Assar stays in my team despite his poor performance last week. I couldn't afford Eze, so that's why he's in my team at the moment. Up front, I've gone heavy on form and fixture. Mateta's in for Palace obviously. Mamouche is another cheap enabler with good numbers. And then I've gone with Isak as my captain. I just think he's a standout pick this week. Nailed on taking pens, in great form and has an amazing fixture. So yeah, I'm really happy with how my wildcard's looking.
Yeah, fair enough. I can't lie, your team is looking really solid, Patrick. I'm expecting a couple of big green arrows for you over the next couple of weeks. And that wraps things up for game week 32. We've both got chips active and there are plenty of doubles on the horizon, so it's shaping up to be a really interesting run-in.
Let us know in the comments what moves you're making this week and whether you're playing a chip. Always good to see what the community is thinking.
And as always, if you enjoyed the video or found it useful, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. Look out for last minute tips and advice on X at Weekend Fix.
Best of luck for the game week. We'll be back soon with more FPL content. Thanks for watching.